Uncut, unedited. All right, people. Y'all know what time it is. It's live, uncut, unedited. We got a special segment today. We're here with the Public Defender's Office. We're going to do a discussion with the Public Defender's Office. So I'm just want to wait a few more people come on in, and we're taking calls today, people. We're taking calls now, so don't call in with this long. They beat me up today, y'all. So don't call in with this long drawn statement. Get to the point, and hopefully we can answer your questions, you guys. So just we're ready for a few more people come on while we're waiting. We know, hey,
call in number
what it is
872-299
unedited
0808 or 872-297-6389.
Mark, you gonna start us off?
Well, I'm gonna let you.
Okay, go ahead, my partner.
Let your girl go.
Go ahead, partner.
Let your partner go.
Listen, first of all, today is literally going to be a great show, jam packed with some good information. I'm excited to just jump right on in because we're talking about. Well, we're discussing with our public defenders today, and we have Alex as well as we have Emmanuel. Can you all do us a favor? Tell us who you are and what you're doing here today. Starting with you.
First, good afternoon, everybody, and quick step back. Thank you for having us on the show. We really appreciate it. Happy 20th for Teamwood Inglewood. So I'm Emmanuel Andre. I'm a Cook County Public Defender. I'm a deputy over there. What that really means is we're one of the largest offices in the nation, actually, the second largest office in the nation, where if someone's accused of a crime, we step up and we represent them and we help people get reintegrated back into the community. So it is exciting work, it is passionate work, and it's also work that gets misconstrued oftentimes. So we're really excited to talk about the Public Defender's Office, new projects that we have happening.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So I'm Alex. I am the Director of Community Engagement at the Cook County Public Defender's Office. And when I joined the office, I was really excited about building the relationship between community and the office. I think we should be working right alongside community in order to make communities safer, to make the system more fair, to make people be treated with dignity and respect. And so we've been able to do take some steps in the right direction, and hopefully today we can talk a little bit more about that.
A little bit more. And then we got the man responsible for making it all happen, Mr. Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Mitchell, Associate Director, Teamwork Inglewood. Y'all already know who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they should by now, Martin, right?
No.
So I brought the Public Defender's Office in again because we had a discussion last year. We talked about carry conceal, living with a felon. We talked about certain things. But this is the thing about the Public Defender's Office. Historically, they have been known as a organization you can't trust. All right, having lived experience, meaning having been locked up before a few times, right? Quite a few times, maybe a lot of times, right? All right, I understand if I ever had to have a public defender office, I knew I was done. I just had to figure out how much time I was gonna get. That's all. It wasn't a matter whether I was gonna get it, just how much, right? Whether he wanted to negotiate in that 5-10 seconds I had him, but that has changed now. We got a new captain on the bridge named Sharon Mitchell. Sharon Mitchell's a wonderful brother. He is changing the way they do things there. He's changing the outreach. He's changing the profile. He's changing everything about that office. So I'm willing to give him another chance. So today we're going to talk about what's one of the things we're going to find out. Do you have a warrant? Do your baby daddy have a warrant? He keep telling you he can't come up here and get no job because he got a warrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got a number now. He can call. We're going to talk about that today. We might even talk about a few other things. Whatever y'all want to talk about, put it in that chat, call in, and we're going to get it going. You ready, Martin?
I'm ready for him.
All right. How we going to kick this off?
Listen, let me just say something real quick. We're taking calls. You guys know the number 872-299-0808. And this is the time to ask questions. Now, don't ask me all the questions because I do not know. We have the professionals here.
Professional.
So they're going to answer the question. So, all right, you can start. Let's start with the hotline first.
Start with that hotline. What about that hotline?
I know
man?
a lot of brothers got fellas. I mean, not fellas, just warrants.
Right.
Warrants.
Might not even did
And
nothing.
women.
Yeah.
Got
And
women?
You listen.
Oh, Lord.
There's women out here. We need to
I
have the women.
understand. Okay.
Somebody said, I don't trust the prosecutors.
The prosecutor.
And you shouldn't trust the prosecutor.
Right.
We are the public defender's office. And I want to take a moment to step back to really understand like the differences between the two offices. And I think it's absolutely critical as we move forward in terms of being able to delineate the difference. The public defender's office, our goal is to represent you, and we could understand why. We've been around for over 90 years. We could all understand why a lot of people may have had a lot of bad experiences. And we want to take account. As Brother Mark Mitchell mentioned, with this new public defender, that's one of the things we're trying to address firsthand. How do you build trust? How do you strengthen community? How do you have a direct line of communication with an attorney? Because public defenders, we are attorneys, bright, brilliant attorneys who have the most experience doing criminal defense work. But oftentimes, given past experiences, we understand why that trust. And speaking on that trust level, one thing that was mentioned briefly is this idea of the arrest hotline. So we have an arrest hotline. So anytime someone's up, last year around this time, we came in, we talked about if you've ever been arrested, here's the number to call.
Right.
We'll get an attorney down there to help you make sure you don't say anything that hurts your case. Here's that number to call. That's 844-817-4448. Once again, that's 844-817-4448. But now it's even changed, it's even expanded. As Mark mentioned, this idea of warrants. Many times we're getting people to call in and say, hey, I need help. I don't know if I have a warrant. What do I do if I have a warrant? But now with that hotline, you can call in and figure out if you do have a warrant, and we'll help you get that figured out, and we'll help you get back on the right track. This is a huge change.
Now I got a question, because for those people who's thinking this is a setup,
Right. Because we think that.
because
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
We
right.
think that. They think they dial that number, it's tap, right?
right, it is.
And they got that
tapped.
call ID and the
Right.
address show up and they're on the way to get us, right?
Hello?
Is that gonna happen?
No, absolutely. So that phone number is a phone number directly to the public defender's office. It's an arrest hotline that's run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never stops. It could be at midnight, it could be at 1 a.m, it could be at 2 a.m. And the thing to remember, whenever you're contacting an attorney, especially a public defender, a criminal defense attorney, you have what's considered attorney-client privilege once that's made. So this idea that we cannot and we should not be sharing that phone call to set somebody up. So if you may have a warrant, you've been hiding out wherever, you don't have to worry about that. This is attorneys whose whole sole job is to help you get.
Let me give you a hypothetical.
Absolutely.
Can I get a hypothetical?
You can give me one or two.
I got a maybe just say a guy got a old burglary or something, right? 20 years ago. He called you, he said, hey, is this line tapped? Is this being recorded? What you gonna say?
No.
Not recorded,
absolutely
okay. You ain't got no call ID on me or nothing, right?
not. Well,
You ain't what?
no.
No? Okay, so look, I got this burglary. Maybe. Can you look it up? And then you say
Well, when you say you got a burglary.
a warrant.
Okay, a warrant. There you go.
Because I ain't sure. I know I ain't go to court.
Okay.
I knew I ran. I went to Mississippi, and it'd been 10, 12 years ago, and somebody told me warrants fall off like credit.
Yeah.
Bankruptcy on the credit. That ain't true?
So first of all, no, unfortunately, that is not true. Warrants do not fall off like bankruptcy or credit. Unfortunately, they stay on, and one of the challenges when you do have a warrant, it gives law enforcement the right to stop, to really take you in immediately on that warrant. So we know of many people in our community who live in constant fear of being able to reach out, to being able to get access to critical public services that they should be getting. But because they have this warrant that they don't know, and then you're frozen, you don't know what to do. You don't have the funds to hire a private attorney to look into it. So first, even before you fit, like the attorney's gonna call and let you know what needs to happen. There's not gonna be somebody who shows up at the secret hideout or at your place to say, hey, we found you. No, there will be an opportunity to be able to talk with an attorney in person if you so choose, to be able to give you the strategy needed to be able to address this so you can move forward with your life, which is what we want people to be able to do.
So, and all like that, so when I called and they said, yeah, you got a warrant, what would hypothetically be the next steps?
So it first of all, in that example, with an open case, one of the next steps would be the attorney would actually reach out to the courtroom. To see when the warrant was executed and to be able to figure out what needs to happen to, they call it quash and recall the warrant. So there would be a time though, you would have to show up to court to be able to explain to a judge with your attorney present what happened, so the judge could be able to issue you, to be able to let you out, to be able to address the underlying case itself. So you can have a warrant for all sorts of reasons, right? You can have a warrant because you just stopped showing up to court, which
Right.
is the example you gave. There's other warrants that people don't know of sometimes.
Like what?
Or sometimes police is looking to investigate you,
Okay.
right? Sometimes there's literally a warrant out for your arrest. Me and you, Mark, we was hanging out last night, and
Mhm.
somebody called and said, hey, Emmanuel and Mark did this to me.
Right.
And here they are, here's their information. So now the police could be looking for us, and the police could get a warrant from a judge, an arrest warrant, to be able to actually arrest us if they have enough
Mhm.
allegations, or they could even be a search warrant. You know, so there's all sorts of different ones, but specifically what we see most of the times are the warrants where people actually stop going to court and they don't know what to do. They know there might be one out there. But this is a way to at least confirm it, right?
Mhm.
To verify it, but also give you the keys as to what's needed to be able to address it. We won't force you to go to court.
Real quick, give us that number because somebody just asked for that number.
1-844-817-4448.
We said it one more time.
844-817-4448.
I can put it in too.
4448. We'll drop it in the chat. The thing to remember about this number that's so critical, I mean, this is like your ID card. This is one of these you don't want to leave home without.
Mhm.
And not only you should make sure if you got somebody in your life that loves you, make sure they have that number for you, because that is a number. If you've ever been arrested and people need to know what's happening, if there's a need to get an attorney out to stop an interrogation right away, that's the number you can use. But in addition to that, right, since we've been here last year, that number now, the services have now expanded to include warrants themselves.
Okay.
So it's an absolutely critical number that we think that's a phenomenal service that's offered. Once again, that's 844-817-4448.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Now, you had to, what if I'm calling and just see if my son got a warrant? Would I be able to do that if I have his information? Because, you have some people to do that. They call and use other people's information to see if this person got a warrant on them. So how is that?
I mean, I think inevitably the preference would always be on the person who may have it,
Okay.
but that is always the preference, the person who may have it. So
No,
if your
what I'm
son-
asking is, what information do you need in order to find out you have a warrant? Because I might have all my son's personal information. So I know you can't, if I just say, well, I'm Roman Johnson
Absolutely.
and my
Yeah.
social security number is blah, 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 then I know. And I may not be Roman Johnson.
So predominantly what we would need is, first, last name, government name, no nicknames, unfortunately.
Right.
First, last name, date of birth. And usually for that, we'll be able to look it up. And sometimes we would want to know if you remember, if you recall, if you did have court, where was that court? If you recall where, who that judge may be. All of those help. But predominantly what we would need is at least our first, last name.
Yeah,
and date of birth.
I think.
So in other
go
words,
ahead.
if your cousin want to find out if you got a warrant,
Mhm.
all they need is your name and your.
Well, that could
date
be
of birth.
problematic, right?
Right,
You
they
know,
can
a
do
woman
that.
look up and say, "I'm gonna find out if this guy got a warrant. I'm gonna turn him in." Right? She don't know she ain't turning him in when she call y'all, because they're not gonna turn him in.
No.
But
Right.
she'll find out and tell the police. So I think they might want the individual themselves. I think that would be part of the requirement, as they say. Because
But you don't know who you talk to over the phone. Mark.
yeah, but I mean, you could act like it, but then again, they might have a follow-up question, right?
Right.
But I think it's because that could be problematic.
Right.
Because what ultimately ends up happening is you call this hotline number,
Right.
and then eventually they connect you. They find the assistant public defender who's assigned to your case, and then they work with that assistant public defender. And so it's not just through the hotline. You'll still have to at that point, if you're calling for somebody else or saying you're somebody else, right, you're already at that point pretending to be that person, talking to that person's public defender, and then you got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, you got these gentlemen, they're a man until it's time to take care of business.
There you go.
They're giving their mom call to see if I got a warrant.
That's how they come up here. Mom can take me up here to go get a job.
Right.
We put mom out of here.
Right.
We tell mom, you got to go. We got him.
And we do want to, though, acknowledge just sort of the trauma that's related to that. I think we
Mhm.
talked about before
Mhm.
how traumatic it might be to be able to appear before law enforcement, to be able to ask them, right?
Right.
Before a judge, to be able to talk about a warrant, but even before an attorney. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the things we're acknowledging ourselves,
Mhm.
right? So I know it's said in jest, but The reality is, though, in terms of communities, especially communities that are over police, communities that have had issues with police brutality and things like that,
Mhm.
I think we're seeing, people are traumatized and they don't want to go to the system for no matter what.
They don't want to go
And
in
you-
front of a judge.
And you know what? So we just cracked it. It's all good. So the best thing to do is to call the toll-free number. And if you don't want to let them know where you're at because it's a setup, have your baby mama or your cousin or your mama call.
I don't think we
In the
said
case.
that.
No, I'm just joking.
we ain't
But
do
no,
that.
but you know, it's
Why you
always
man
some
up.
people.
It's just a
some
phone
people-
call.
Right.
It's just a phone call.
Exactly, but some
And then-
people are skeptical.
Well, I mean,
And
I
so-
understand. We're traumatized, like I said.
Exactly.
But I think the thing is, you call, and no one's going to come running in your door, kicking your door down. You're just going to say, if I got a warrant, they're going to take your information. They're going to get back at you and say, yeah, you got a warrant. You want to address it? You don't even have to address it, do you?
No.
You can say, no, I just want to know. And that's the end of that, right?
Mhm.
And if you do have one, you can say to them, and then you all of a sudden you have a lawyer out of nowhere. You got a lawyer
You
all
got
of
a
a
lawyer.
sudden. Is that right?
Absolutely. If it's a warrant that he was representing you on, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you guys mentioned something earlier, and I hope y'all could jump into this. You talked about the Community Defense Center. So we may be jumping the gun, but I definitely
Yeah,
don't
we
want
are.
to jump into that.
Yeah,
Then we
Okay.
jumped the gun.
Yeah, it's real quick.
Right.
Okay.
Stay with once for a
Okay.
little long.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
Another question. Okay, that same one, that 844 number is the same as finding the public defender, right? Is that number still? How many services do that number represent? It's
So
just
that number represents two key services.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's what's called our arrest hotline,
arrest.
which means if you know someone who just got picked up by the police
Mhm.
and they're about to be interrogated or they're being brought down to a police
Mhm.
station, you can have a public defender down there to be in that station and to help represent them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all holidays included. So that's one, and they've been doing that for quite some time now.
Mhm.
But now the piece that's been added to that is this warrant piece, where that you can use this number to be able to get access in terms of warrants. So that's why that number is so critical.
Okay. So let me address that former for a minute. So historically, when an individual gets picked up from the police and someone comes and runs in, Mark, my son just got locked up. What I'm gonna do? They don't know what to do, right? And if the son is sitting in the back of the car, handcuffed, and his mind is racing, how do I talk my way out of this? And I already know once you get handcuffs on, you can't talk your way out of it. Only one way you can is cooperate, right? So but no, you ain't gonna talk your way out of that. So here's the situation: your family don't know what to do, and you don't know what to do. And historically, you don't see a lawyer or public defender until your first court date. So all that time, that night, you're in the station. That whole morning, you get before you go to court, they question you over 2 to 3 days. You still have not been represented. That has changed.
Mm.
Now you as the person, when someone runs you and say, my son got picked up, you the hero. How you the hero? Because you say, call this number. What's that number again, Martin?
That number is, I got it right here,
Uh-huh.
844-817-4448.
Now, when you call that number, you tell them to call that number, you just became a hero. You just gave them some information they didn't have. And guess what's going to happen when they call that number? What's going to happen, Emmanuel?
We're going to make sure that an attorney shows up
At the police station.
at the police station to be able to represent your loved one.
So you know how,
That's
yeah.
so critical.
You know how
What
y'all
is
watch
it
on
2 in the
TV?
morning?
You know how you be on TV and the lawyer walk in and say, quit talking to my client? Is that what's going to happen? Huh? Yeah, you got a lawyer,
I
right?
mean, that has literally happened, right? Like somebody will be in the interview room with a police officer, and then we show up, and then they'll be like, "Oh, hold on," and we'll be like, "No, we want to see our client."
This is over with.
24/7.
Yeah, and we
right?
keep track of the time that we arrive, the time that we started talking to the police officer. We try to keep track of all those things so that if an interview is happening at 8:20, but we arrived at 8:15.
Mhm.
There was a lawyer there. They should not have been speaking to that person without the lawyer, right? And so those are ways that we cover our ground.
So everybody should have this number posted on their refrigerator. What's that number again, Martin?
That number is 844-817-4448.
We're going to say that a whole lot because we want you to put that in your memory somewhere.
Absolutely. And look, you might be home right now or wherever you at, sitting down thinking, oh, not me. I would never say anything. I would never do anything. But look, a couple of years back, 2017, Chicago got dubbed the false confession capital.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because historically what's been happening in Chicago and also other big cities in terms of literally people just making up stuff because they
Right.
think they could talk their way out of it. Mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers coming to police stations to help their young person and say, baby, just say whatever it is.
Somebody's just said, I don't believe you.
And that's exactly
You don't believe
they-
what?
They,
That's what
they,
just-
they said, I don't believe
that's what it
him.
said in the comments.
So my question is that for those that just don't believe, because again, I'm sitting here and I can understand and see where we're going, but I may not have the mindset of somebody that don't believe, like this guy that's speaking now that says, I don't believe you.
You don't
What
believe
would we
what?
say to him?
What
I
is he
think he was
doing?
talking about when you was talking. I think
He don't believe me?
Yeah,
He don't believe me.
yeah.
I make my whole life being believable.
What is it?
What is it
doesn't
he don't believe?
Yeah, what exactly does
Everything
Mr.
I just
Lester, call in 872-299-0808.
Maybe he doesn't believe.
Call in, Mr. Lester.
And then someone said, do you have to have a warrant to call the number? Well, you don't have to have one, but you're calling to see if you have a warrant. So
Right.
that's why you're calling in.
And I understand the disbelief. Seriously, I do. I do. And I'm not, and Lester's correct. It is hard to believe that this much change is happening. All right. That office has been so depleted of services when it comes to us. All right. Historically, like I said, I've been there. Most of the time, I was a career criminal, so I had lawyers. But when I watch a public defender come in there and speak to a guy for 5 minutes, and then go out there on his case, and he's got, he has no vested. It ain't his community. So I mean, and like I say, that all changed at the top. All right, there's a brother now that's at the top, and I believe in him. I believe in him, not because we have the same last names, but because I've checked his heart. I've seen him.
You've seen the man.
I've seen the man. Look, I fell on the floor one day at a meeting. The man picked me up, put me in a chair while I was trying to figure out why the hell I just fell.
Hold it,
Sat there with me.
So he picked up.
Pick me
Man
up.
up.
Hold on, let me
We're
see
getting
the
off
number.
topic now, man.
The number is 872-299-0808. Call in. We're taking calls. 872-299-0808. That's the call-in number. That's not calling checks if you got a warrant now.
Oh, no.
Now, let me just say this because
Go ahead.
Lester was clear.
Mm.
Lester says that what he doesn't believe
Mhm.
is that when they make the call, that an attorney will show up. So,
Oh,
so first of all, we know that this is a 24-hour
Mhm.
service. So if it's 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the morning,
Right.
and you see your child in the back of the seat, you don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They call the toll-free number 844-817-4448. Ring, ring. Okay. Get you on the phone. Lester does not believe that you're going to show up to represent him.
Yeah, we completely understand.
One more question,
why-
brother. Man.
Oh, before I
It
address
says
that.
that this person said right here, I was told in order to get a public defender, a judge has to determine if you qualify. Is that true?
So that's a good question.
Okay.
So let's go to believe, and then is that
Two
true?
questions on the table.
Yeah, so in terms of the believable part of that, we could understand why, because this idea, and listen, as a person who, before I went to the public defender's office, I was in private practice. I was one of those attorneys you'd have to pay a whole lot of money
Mhm.
to get me to show up at 2:00 in the morning. But in 2017, this saw a change in terms of when the public defender's office took over this piece in terms of making sure 24 hours a day, if someone's being interrogated at a police station, an attorney will show up. And you have ways, and that's one of the things we're very serious around, this idea of around accountability. If somebody does not show up to your loved one,
Ooh,
For your
sorry,
loved
I got a call.
there's ways to be able to follow up on that.
I'm slipping. I'm sorry.
No problem. But in terms of that believable piece,
So-
I think that's
I'll
really
let him
critical.
finish, actually.
Yeah.
I think, and I could address really quick in terms of, don't you have, I think the question was,
Finance.
yeah, don't you need a judge to appoint it? So that's what happened in 2017. Then Chief Judge Evans appointed and allowed for the Public Defender's Office to expand its services to be able to do this. So that's why we're able to, so that call is correct, that you typically do need a judge to approve your finances before you get an attorney. But I can guarantee you, if you call this 1-844-817-4448 number, there's not going to be anyone who's going to be checking in on your finances, because time is of the essence. Time is of the essence, and we want to get out there and be able to make sure we do whatever we can to help.
So y'all coming regardless.
And you
Yeah.
gotta call.
Yeah, he signed an order that basically said anybody who wants a lawyer at the police station can be represented by the public defender's office. And so you don't have to worry. And also, if you don't want, maybe you're saying, okay, well, I need a lawyer at the police station, but I don't know if I want a public defender to represent me in my case. The representation is that when the arrest hotline comes, that's at the police station, right? And then later when you go off to like, your first court date, you can determine your next moves. But that you don't have to, continue on. It's just at the police station.
Now all is good. Let me see if our callers. My caller's still there. 5447 caller. Go ahead. Caller.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. You know what? I didn't even see you, caller. My apologies. My apologies.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm glad you had me holding.
Okay.
I got more information on the issue.
Okay.
Well, first I had a question on y'all take about something, but before I get started, I just want to say that I think it's great what you're doing, but at the same time, I think it's an absolute shame that here we are in 2023 and somebody's family member got to go back into the Stone Age and pick up the phone and call this number. There should be a software integrated system that the moment someone is checked into a police station, that should be integrated into the public defender system where it sends out an alert and then someone can either pick up the case and show up at the police station. All this calling is really Stone Age work. And I really hope that really soon the courts can have a software integrated system where the moment someone is checked into a police station, that is that the public defender's office is electronically notified through some sort of alert system. I just think we're just too far in technology for a family member to have to pick up a phone and call you guys. But I'm super glad that you're doing this. And I just want to be clear on that.
Thank you.
But I really hope that this, after it's in trial and people are actually doing it, that they would push for a software integrated system, because the odds of someone's family member even knowing they were taken into a police station in question is not that it's low, but African Americans mostly, we could be driving down the street and find out we got a warrant for something that happened years ago that was somehow unresolved, and no one knows where we are. So that's why I just hope that after people call and the system is in use for a while, that the courts will recognize that they really need a software integrated system in place. And that way, no matter what, the public defenders will come out, even if that person doesn't have a family member.
Okay, caller.
But it's great what you're doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. We got another. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but my question was, to be real quick, I wanted to know your take on two big issues that have issues with people's cases. That is the technique of continuations until default. And then the other situation where you have individuals who are caregivers and their schedule is not normal, their life is not normal, and their caregiving, whether it's to a special needs child or disabled or elderly parent, is not taken into consideration in court. So I just want to know your take on those two issues, because those are very big issues. Attorneys, public defenders, and the other side continuing cases until default, because that's how things can balloon, when it defaults and it balloons. So I want to know your take on that technique, if that's something that needs to be dealt with. And then the other issue with people who are caregivers and having their caregiving information being a part of their case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Hello?
Yeah, you can hang up now, ma'am. Just listen to the thing. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hello?
I think that's the second.
The
caller.
second caller. Just wait, second caller. I'll get with you. 0545.
No
I'll come
problem.
to you next. Just hold on. All right.
Yeah, this was not a question, but it was a really great point made as to automating this and the technology. I think it really speaks to us as a community. How are we choosing to invest our public dollars? So I would definitely push everyone here who's listening. I think that caller's point is an excellent one.
Me too.
And I do think if there is a big push, there would be a response to that. How do we choose to invest our public dollars? So really good point on that, which I think we would support. In terms of the question, in terms of this idea around continuations and how it happens, and there's even been reports on this. I think in this office, we are actively trying to address that. What causes continuation? Sometimes, if you've ever had a case, you hear the word discovery. The discovery is not complete. The discovery, status on discovery, status on discovery. That's a fancy way of saying the transfer of the quote unquote evidence on the case, whether that's reports or anything else like that. So those are issues that we're working on in terms of on our side to be able to figure out, all right, how do we address this? Now, there are times that the attorney and the person that they represent, there might be a witness issue. There might be an investigation issue. Many cases now that this witness is now in Texas or out the country or whatever, but it's not a one size fit all. But we do want to acknowledge, though, overall, how slow it takes to be able to get your case to trial really impacts a person's decision, especially if they're sitting there in a county jail waiting for something to happen. So we acknowledge that, and it's something that we're hoping. I know the Cook County Public Defender's Office was big on the Pretrial Fairness Act, the PFA, hoping to be able to minimize the amount of people who are in Cook County jail waiting for trial. So this won't have as big of an impact, but we really appreciate that. And it is something that we're looking to address and to take seriously, at least on our side. Although there's several different sides of this now, right? There's a Cook County Public Defender's Office or defense attorneys, period. There's the prosecutor's office. Not sure what's happening on that end in terms of, they play a key role too. Then also there's, of course, the judges. Sometimes judges' schedules in terms of, I've represented tons of people where I've had trials set for I don't know how many times, and a trial will continue to get kicked for one reason or another. Sometimes the cop don't show up, or sometimes the key witness that we have don't show up. So there's several reasons. But what you are saying, though, I think it's an absolutely important point that we need to be able to address, especially for those who's in custody waiting for their day.
Let's take
So
the next
hold
call.
on.
Go ahead, Mark.
Alex,
we
you
have
want
a
to
second
address
thing,
the second question?
Regarding caregivers who
Yeah.
have to miss court. Well, I mean, I wish I had a better answer to this question. I mean, honestly, I think the way the court system is set up, unfortunately, is that you have to show up every time you have court, and if you don't miss court, right? So one highlight or one thing that has changed, I think, is that if you do miss court, you have one more opportunity to show up to court. And also, I'll take this moment to plug a new court reminder system that the county has. And so if you go to courtreminder.cookcountyil.gov, you can sign up to get court reminders.
Repeat that again.
So it's courtreminder.cookcountyil, short for Illinois.gov. And you can sign up and you can get text reminders or phone call reminders about your court date. But, I wish I had a better answer.
So
but
isn't there, in reference to that same question, isn't there a law in the books now when it comes to sentencing? If you are the
yeah.
primary caregiver, that has to be considered, whereas before it didn't make a difference whether you was a single parent and then, you were going to still get sentenced. Could you talk about that, in either one of y'all on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a law called the Children's Best Interest Act. And it came into place, a few years ago, I think during COVID. And the law basically says that when it comes to sentencing, but honestly, it doesn't have to just be sentencing. Because the law says that the court has to consider the best interest of your children before sentencing you. So if you are the primary caregiver, you take your kids to school, you feed them, and they don't have anybody else to go with, right? And you're looking at, having to go to jail and being separated from your family for a certain amount of time. The court has to consider the best interest of your children and the impact on your children of you having to go and be incarcerated. And so, so what it says is that, an attorney can put together family impact statements that you can present to the judge. And so what I was saying earlier is it doesn't have to just be at sentencing, right? You can prepare an impact statement at any point, right? And use that as really what it is mitigation material.
What does that mean in layman?
So what is
Layman terms?
Yeah.
It means what?
Yeah. So it's just, these are things that you use to show the prosecutor to, maybe negotiate a sentence, or maybe you use it with the judge in terms of sentencing, to get the.
So if I'm a
prosecutor-
single parent
Yeah,
and I got a case and I've been found guilty, I'm getting ready to be sentenced, right?
yeah,
Historically, the judge don't even care about whether I got kids or none of that, right? But now he has to consider that, right?
yeah, they have to consider it. And so in these impact statements, they're just letters. So they're letters from like your children's school. They're letters from your children's doctors, right? If your child has special needs and you're the primary caregiver of that child, if there's a doctor that writes a letter saying, it's going to be a really big impact on this child if they're separated from their caregiver, that's a letter that you could give to the judge. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add, this is all about humanizing people. It is people that is walking through this, and it is not just that individual that steps in front of that judge each and every day, but they carry with them their legacy. They carry with them their children, whether they're in the courtroom or not. And it's to be able to acknowledge that, and how do we push on that? So some things to think about, though, even you mentioned the Children's Best Interests Act. I think one thing that's critical is for people to start bringing things in earlier on, not just for the prosecutor, not just for the judge, but even for your attorney. Because going back, I think it was mentioned, sometimes you only get 10 seconds with that attorney. I will represent you better if I know you.
Right.
So I think it's absolutely critical on the front end, as much as information you can get to somebody as possible, because decisions on your life is constantly being made. And if I'm bought into you, if I know the name of your baby and everything else like that, and I know it's happened to me, I can't sleep at night because I know I need to turn every stone for that person, because it's not just that individual, but it's that baby coming up too. So just something to think about. That's a great point about the caller.
Got another caller.
We got another caller. All right, caller 0545. You're next.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks for
My
holding.
name is Mark Villanueva, and I've been had a warrant for failure to register for gun offender for at least 7 years, and I've been stopped by plenty of police officers. They've been told me that I had a warrant. I told them that I was going in to handle it, but they also told me that I might be detained for 48 hours or whatever. And I am a primary caregiver for my daughter, and I need help getting it settled.
All right, then you know.
Okay. So you know what? Dial that number. Do you have the number? If not, let us give it to you
So
again.
I think he wants to know, will he be locked up 48
All
hours?
right. What about him?
That's what I think he's asking.
Well, in terms of would you
Yeah.
be locked up for 48 hours, what I would highly suggest is actually you do call that number. And if it is a failure to register, when you get on the phone, an attorney will be able to walk with you through, okay, exactly how we're going to address this, to be able to avoid you. Because
Okay.
The whole goal is to avoid you being locked up for 48 hours. And right now, it sounds like you've been getting off a little lucky based on the discretion of that particular police officer. But if you haven't registered, technically,
Yeah.
they can take you in and put you before a judge, which we want to avoid. It's different if you're what's called being proactive, where you're able to showing up, at a date with an attorney. That will help
So,
avoid you being arrested.
Hypothetically, he would call them that y'all would motion the case back up, and he would appear before the judge. He would not to turn himself in the police station.
Yeah, hypothetically, yeah, absolutely. Someone will help them figure out, okay, what's needed. Number one, what's the holdup? Like, it's one of the easiest thing to do if it's just a register issue. Get registered, right? And again, Mark, I don't want you to go into your case. This is not the space for that. But those are some of the things that an attorney would be able to do to be able to decide what's the appropriate strategy to address your issue and try to make sure you avoid being arrested. Because we don't want that to happen for you or your child, Mark.
Yeah. So, what is the number?
The number is 844 817
844
817
817
44
4448.
And you know what, Mark? And Mark, do us a favor. Once you call and go through
Yes.
the process and everything works out for you, go ahead and give a call back and just give us an update on how that worked out for you, okay?
Okay. So call that number now.
I would if I were you.
Yeah, I mean, you can. We run 24/7.
Okay. Yeah, I will.
The people answering the phone are not in this office right now, so give it a shot.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, keep taking care of that baby, Mark.
You got any questions on that?
Okay, thank
Let
you.
me see how many
I will.
questions.
All right, let's segue into that satellite.
Yeah.
Let's
The
do what?
satellite. You were talking about a satellite office earlier.
Oh, yeah, make me make sense. I was talking about the Community Defense Center.
Yes.
Okay, you said satellite. I was
Okay, I
okay.
know. I was way out there, didn't you?
I was gone.
My bad.
That's all right.
So
So yeah, so let's go ahead and get in on that.
All
Alex,
right.
kick it off.
Yeah. Okay. So since last year, we've been working on a project to open 2 community offices, one in the south side, one in the west side. We will be opening it is now
Satellite.
named, yeah, well, so it's now named the Freedom Defense Center of Roseland. We'll be opening it in Roseland. Yeah, and it's called the Freedom Defense Center of Roseland. In that space, the idea is that, well, let me back up a little bit. So when we started doing this work, we've been talking to community and saying, what would it take for you to be able to trust our office, right? So that we could work well together and we could work with each other, right? And alongside each other in these cases. And the things that we heard were accountability. There's no accountability. There's, we don't have autonomy over our cases, and you're not accessible, no accessibility, right? And so what could we do to address those, right? And so we got, some big federal ARPA dollars, some federal funding for some projects, and we said, this is what we want to do. And so we looked at Roseland's community, heavily disinvested, right? And we have a lot of cases that come from Roseland. And so we started working with community. And throughout this entire year, we have been working alongside community members to build a plan for this office.
Can you give us some success stories? Just some, and no names or anything like that. But
Mhm.
so I'm listening, and we're talking about a history of not trusting, right?
Right.
So now we're building the gap because it's time for a new. Give me some examples of some of the things that the office have done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we haven't launched yet, but what we always say is that just because the doors haven't opened doesn't mean we don't start doing the work right now, right? And so in addition to working with the folks who are living in Roseland, we're also listening to folks who are inside Cook County Jail so we can make sure we have incarcerated voices being represented. And so what does that look like right now, right? That looks like showing up for folks when they got trials, or when they have, me being able to support, any needs that they have, community needs. Going into Roseland, being in Roseland, right? Like, I don't live in Roseland. Emmanuel doesn't live in Roseland, but we try to be in that community. We're working with folks who are in that community and being accessible to folks.
When you
If somebody-
say working, right? So you're going to have an office in Roseland, and
Yeah.
then you say you're working with the people. What does that mean?
throughout this planning process?
No, through the implementation. When it
Okay.
started, what are you going to be doing? Just sitting in the office doing what?
Yeah. So
Just saying hi?
No, definitely not just
We're
saying
busy,
hi.
right?
Like, unfortunately, we don't have enough time just to say hi. But
Yeah.
is there?
No question.
I'll
No,
jump
go
in.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. In terms of what some of that work looks like is, look, we're the public defender's office, and our expertise is representing people in the courts, specifically in criminal
Mhm.
court. So that is first and foremost going to be our top priority. So instead of, when we say working with, if you have someone in Roseland, right, that you know that's having an issue right now with their attorney, and we've had this. So talk about success stories. We've had people come up to us, hey, my loved one can't talk to their attorney. This is what's happening. Can you help us out? Now it's different when you have this access. You have this increased access. We'll be able to make calls right away to be able to make sure that they're in contact with their attorney. And we've had cases that's had really good successful outcomes on the beginning, whether that's a dismissal or anything else. But one of the things that we recognize, Omar, I think this goes back to your earlier point about about Chief Mitchell, the
Mhm.
public defender, this idea of picking up and sticking with someone, picking up and sticking with someone. So when we come into contact with someone through the public defender's office, it is really an emergency situation.
Right.
But what does it look like to be able to help stick with someone? Now, we are not the experts in employment and everything in
Right.
housing. No, this office tends to offer a collaborative approach where we're going to be working with local experts who do employment law, who do housing law, who do things around case management services, therapeutic services. So we acknowledge when someone comes in and we're representing them, they're not just that individual, they're a parent who has all sorts of these other issues that's needed. So it's forming that collaboration more and being able to work with someone. So as we pick them up, we're also sticking with them.
So in other words, could a person, instead of calling the hotline, could he come in there and ask about his warrant?
Absolutely.
If a guy has a case pending and he don't feel like he's getting represented properly at the public defender's office, can he come in there and talk to someone?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So
And,
they-
and the office is scheduled to open when and where?
Well, we're scheduled to open early 2024.
Mhm.
We do have a location. We're just trying to figure out some stuff before we get the contract signed and done. But we are going to be opening early 2024 in the Roseland area.
Would there be lawyers out there on staff?
Oh, absolutely. That is, so the way we envision this office, it is
Yeah.
an office where there's lawyers on staff that's sharing space with other social services providers, right? So you can have an individual who might come in, hey, I just need help with this, but then you have an opportunity to be able to access these other services, or we're just doing linkages with these other services. So we're intentional in taking a whole human being in addition to the community that they
Okay.
come with.
All right, great. Y'all got any questions? Call in. Let me segue into this.
Before you do,
Go ahead. You
Mark,
want to go ahead? What you
can
got?
I just plug really quickly?
ahead.
So these positions, we want these positions filled by local community members, if possible.
So y'all hiring
ideally.
people?
And so I was gonna say we might have some job postings coming down the pipe.
Okay.
Keep an eye on our social media. We always post our job postings on social media once they're up. And
What's your social media?
Go to Cook County Public Defender. You can. I don't have the, but just if you look up Cook County Public Defender on X, Facebook, Instagram, we're there.
We're there. Okay, sounds.
Do you have
great.
an idea? You don't even have an idea of what type of jobs or what qualifications?
Oh, yeah, I know the jobs. So we have a trauma recovery specialist.
Trauma recovery.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's somebody who has sort of like a social worker background.
Mhm.
We've got a defense center coordinator. That's the person who's going to be in charge of the space and being in charge of, when you come in, that's the person you're working with. They're going to do the intakes, stuff like that.
What kind of
It's gonna be posted online.
defense center? I'm just trying to give an
Okay.
idea because we got people listening.
Yeah,
Okay.
defense center coordinator. And then the other one is client advocate. And
Okay.
it's like a caseworker, case manager type position. And so those are 3 positions. And then we've got a community navigator, which will be sort of our credible messenger, the folks who know what's going on in the ground, can help us when,
Mhm.
when a client maybe does.
Sound like a job for Martin, don't it?
That-
Sound like a Martin job there, don't it?
And I'm his
Man, I'm talking about the putting the word out there now, you know? Martin, the
Hey,
man,
no
yeah. How many followers you got, Martin?
194,000.
194,000.
and
It's really
that's just one
200,000.
page.
Yeah, it's one page.
Uh-huh.
Just one.
Go
That's just one page.
Right. So yeah. So look, let's before we wrap this up.
Right.
Martin's one of them people that believed the Pretrial Safety Act was gonna let everybody out, and there was gonna be murderers and killers running on the street, and and when they right.
No, that wasn't me.
That was you, man. That was you, man. Okay. So what's happened since that law has been enacted? Has anything changed?
Well, September 12th came and went, right?
Right.
So as you mentioned, there was lots of things being pushed out there that it was going to be D-Day in Chicago, everything was going to go amok. No, and it absolutely hasn't. One of the things that's changed for our office, I know specifically, we have a pretrial team, that's specifically looking at how we handle what used to be bond, but now detention hearings. So we're a lot more time is spending on these detention hearings, and we're seeing a lot more people actually, be let out in light of what they're being accused of, and taking more into consideration the whole person. So that's what we're seeing. We're hoping to continue to see a decrease in the number of people who are sitting in Cook County Jail just because they couldn't afford
I
to
got a
pay.
question. Today.
Just because they didn't have the money to get out. So
Now, what if you have a 2-time carjacker, a person that's 18 and over? I'm not talking about a minor.
Mhm.
Do they let them back out, or how that works?
well, and-
I know you're not the judge, but you.
Yeah, I'm not the judge. And to be very fair and frank with
Right.
you, I would be the person arguing why that 2-time person, if there was convicted 2 times or even if there was accused,
Arre-
why we should release them. But the reality is people don't automatically get released. I think that is the biggest misconception. Like it does not happen. Actually, in that kind of case, those are the ones that there would be a detention hearing and a judge would make a final decision. And we are seeing some of those decisions where the judge is deciding, no, they're staying in. Right before I walked in here, I was talking on the phone with someone about a loved one that they had that a judge made it was not that kind of allegation, but the judge made a decision to keep that person in. So unfortunately, we are still seeing those.
Repeat offender.
So yeah, well, definitely with some repeat defendants, and it depends. And again, it should always be on individual level,
No.
right? So, but what is different now, though, is that person now doesn't have $1 million bail just to be able to get out. Now it's supposed to be a lot more intentional around reviewing like the level of risk of that person, the chances that person will actually make it back to court, those kinds of things, and even the some parts of the allegation, right? Because we all know that presumption can't be made. But unfortunately, there is nothing further from the truth than this idea that judges are automatically letting people out under this. That doesn't happen.
Why you looking at me, Mark? I'm just, hey.
You
I'm
want to
not-
say
I'm
they
not-
coming out.
I don't have that type of mentality, lock them up and throw away the key.
No,
But I mean, that's
you thought they was all gonna come out.
No,
You didn't think so?
I didn't
But
think
they're
so.
not coming out like that.
No,
No.
I mean, I learned through you.
We got some people coming out that need to come out.
Right.
People that used to have $500 bond, $1,000 bond, sit there for like, I mean, there's a whole industrial complex over there in California. I think that's probably one of the biggest jails in the country, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
And even what you're saying, not only is it one of the biggest jails, what we've started to see is this jail has become the social service hub for a lot of people.
Mhm.
This is the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and there's a well-known artist, I'm sorry, I'm from the East Coast, but he has a line that says, I know people who go to jail just to get their teeth fixed.
Wow.
I know people who go to jail just to get their teeth fixed.
Wow.
So there's those out there who don't have insurance, who don't have dental plans, who don't have any of that. And Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart used to openly brag about that. They literally have, they're the biggest mental health provider and one of the biggest ones in the country. So it makes us to sort of reimagine, all right, what are we doing here? And how are we investing our public dollars? What makes sense? Is this the way we want to do this? So I think some of that is, as you think about whoever it is that's your local politician, like what are the things that you want them to push and invest in? And if I could just plug in really quick, there's a reimagining safety project that some members of the Cook County Public Defender's Office has been a part of, in addition to the Black Roots Alliance, and in addition to some researchers of Northwestern, to really think, okay, what does community safety really look like?
I read it.
What's that?
I read the report.
Oh, you read the report?
You wrote it. You're part of the writing of it. Yeah.
That was my
Not me
next one.
personally, but
Can
we
we
were,
find it online?
Is it
well,
been published yet?
not yet. The official release is going to be October 28th.
Okay.
But again, the pushback to speak to actual people and say, hey, instead of us making a presumption as to what is safety, who gets to be safe and how, but just really listening to people directly. So we went around, interviewed over about 100 people and got some feedback, and we're hoping some things that comes out of that report starts to impact and apply to to how we do and how we're investing in some of these public dollars, so we could, yeah.
Well, you know what?
Hold on. The report, and what I loved about the report is it addressed what Black people want for Black people.
Mhm.
All right, because right now, the report spoke about us living in two ways: hypervigilant or isolating. In other words, we go outside, we got our head on the swivel 24/7, or we isolate. I'm not going out because I'm afraid. So one of the things we've done at Teamwork Inglewood is that we took some of best evidence, but we also took some of what our clients wanted. So we're client centered, and that's what the report says. We want to be, what do Black people want in their community?
Wow.
And one of the things they want is proper representation in court too. They want to be able to be safe to go outside. They don't want to be on, I mean, it's rough. Only thing I used to look at my mirror for at one time was the police. If they got behind me, I stayed in the mirror. Now I stay in every mirror when I'm driving all the time. It's hypervigilant. Or I just to say I'm not going to go out because I just don't want to go through today. So the report is addressing, it'll be out soon,
October 28th.
That's what he said. Yeah.
October
So,
28th.
I would advise everyone to take a look at it. And if you want to have a discussion again about it after you read it, I'm sure Martin will come back here
Yes, sir.
and go live again,
Yeah.
right?
We'll come an hour and a half earlier this
Hour and a
time.
half, okay.
Hour, no
All
difference.
right. So go ahead, man. I'm just y'all want to segue, close it out.
Yeah. Vera wanted to say something too.
Go
No,
ahead.
well, you know what, Mark,
say-
he went
okay.
right into it because
Okay.
it was all based on what safety looked
Mhm.
like. Well, you know what? Let me just ask, if you can let a cat out the bag, just on a couple of things that in your gathering information from the community. I know Mark said some things, but just give us a couple of more ideas of what the community is saying that they need in order for a safe community. What it looks like.
Yeah, I think a lot of those are resources. A lot of those are some of the things that being provided by the Cook County Jail, which is embarrassing to say. Like you need to go to jail to get your teeth fixed.
Right.
Like this idea of resources of more therapeutic services. I took part in at least one of these interviews, and one of the things that always stood out to me about this interview, we're sitting there, we're talking to this gentleman about what is it that he needs, and he's going in and he's talking about some of his cases, one of which was just a regular gun case.
Mhm.
But that happened after he'd been shot. He didn't know what to do. He don't trust the police, so he couldn't call the cops. There's no service to have. The only thing that he could do to remain hypervigilant and to feel somewhat of a safety is this idea of carrying a gun. And of course, he's a felon. He's a convicted felon, so he couldn't get access to a FOID and a CC card. So just what does that look like? And the hardest thing about that interview was at the end. He looked at me and he said, "When are y'all coming back?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, this helped me a lot. I just want to talk. This helped a lot. I just want a space to talk." So those are some of the things we need to be thinking about once again as we're going through, like, what do we want to prioritize?
Mark, real quick, this might be off the subject. When are we going to talk about felons getting the gun permits and stuff like that?
Well, no.
What is that? Right off the subject.
Because that
Yeah.
you know, there's a law in the books that states that if you've been out just detached from the criminal justice system for 20 years, you can apply.
Mm.
I'm going to test that model and keep Martin abreast on how.
But I know
see,
somebody that have one.
You say you do, but see, what I'm telling you now,
Okay.
if you see, you can get a Ford card by saying, "Have you ever been convicted?" and put
And
no,
say no.
and they'll send you one because the catching come for the hanging though.
Okay.
Right? So I know some brothers changed their name to Abdul or whatever, got to put that on there and got a new Ford card. Then thought he's gonna be in the street doing security, and they pulled it. He doing 2 now.
It's not
All right.
Okay.
So I'm just saying. So no,
You said he doing 2
right.
now.
So and I just wanted to touch on this at 815 West 63rd Street. We do have a legal clinic. We do expunging and sealings and for free. We do healthcare waivers if you have a background and you want to work in the healthcare field. We do that. So and all our services are free. If you don't have the money to pay for your rap sheet, we provide that too. Look, I want to thank everyone here today. My main man, Martin, who I think is going to have a great relationship with the public defender's office.
Tell the truth.
I'm hoping.
And
I'm
shame
hoping.
the
What's that
devil.
thing? And I want to thank our guests, Emmanuel and Alex, and always the lovely Vera.
Yeah.
All right. So thank y'all again for coming out.
Thank
All
you.
right, people.
Thank you for having us.
you.
You already know what it is.
It's live.
Live.
Uncut,
and
unedited.
We want to give a shout out to Teamwork Inglewood for thanking them for using me and Vera navigators. Hey, thank you, Mark. Thank you guys.
All right.